For some people, Zionism is a religious statement. For some people, it's a political statement. And I think that there are many different forms of Zionism. We know that there are fathers of many kinds of Zionism, right? So Theodor Herzl is the father of political Zionism. But you have religious Zionism, you have cultural Zionism, and you have revisionist Zionism. And everybody that started in the original Zionist movement started because of a different reason.
Hello and welcome to the ILTV Podcast. I'm Maayan Hoffman, Executive Editor of ILTV, and I am so happy to welcome back our viewers and our listeners. Now, I have with me today a very special guest all the way from the United States, Tila Falic. She is the Israel365 Action top delegate at the World Zionist Congress and was recently nominated for the National Holocaust Board in the United States. Welcome, Tila.
Thank you, Maayan. Thank you for having me.
Of course, it is such a pleasure. Now, you are chairing one of the most talked about lists in this year's World Zionist Congress. I didn't get the final numbers. For those who haven't followed the Congress carefully, tell us a little bit about Israel365 Action and how many delegates you are leading this year at the Congress.
I'm actually just leading two, and I think that that's why it's made such a splash. In general, many parties historically have had a large amount of numbers, and this year, after 5 years that the Congress has not had a real Congress because they meet once every 5 years, but the last time that they met in person was actually 10 years ago because of COVID. Right. It was virtual. And in this year's Congress, I think that there are much smaller parties and newer parties that came in. We have a very specific platform and a reason why we're there, and we've made a lot of waves in the Congress, one, because we're new, and two, because some of our items are a little bit controversial.
So tell me a little bit about some of those controversial items. What are the things that you're representing and pushing for this year at the Congress?
I represent two main platforms. One of them is sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, which is something that has been talked about in the Israeli government, in the American government, among the Israeli people. There's a big consensus now, but it used to be a taboo topic that nobody really wanted to talk about. And the other one is strengthening relationships with evangelical Christians, which I don't think is separate one from the other. Because if you understand the right of the Jews in the biblical homeland, then it's a biblical, historical tie that comes from faith. So anyone who is a follower of Judeo-Christian values believes that the biblical homeland, the Jews, are from Judea, belong to the Jewish people. And therefore, our two resolutions have to do with those two topics.
Unbelievable. Now, the Congress is often described, though, as very bureaucratic. And you've injected a lot of new energy and, a lot of new ideas, not just on those two topics, but in terms of how things should really be handled among the Jewish people, new consensus, new parties, as you said, younger people. Why is it so important for you to take a lead at a time like this?
First of all, for me, it's an honor, and I almost feel very overwhelmed to be a part of something that Theodor Herzl started. This is the 39th Congress because it meets every 4 to 5 years. And Theodor Herzl dreamt of a state of Israel for the Jewish people. And here we are in Jerusalem, in the capital, undivided capital of the Jewish people, and we are not just living the dream, we're executing everything that was a vision that was started hundreds of years ago, 120 years ago. And so for me, just to be a part of it, I'm honored. When I walked in and I saw his picture and I got to be a part of that, I felt, as a Zionist and somebody who cares very deeply about not just the Jewish people, but specifically the state of Israel, I feel blessed and honored to be a part of that history. Now, I got involved because I just like to do whatever I can. You say, lekadem, like to advance Israeli values, whatever it is, Judeo-Christian values, values for the state of Israel, and Jewish identity. And so I've been involved for many, many years. I inherited a lot of it from my family, but my entire life, really, I have been dedicated to my community, my people, and my land. And so anything that brings that together, I want to be a part of. Now, in this year's Congress, there's many new parties, and historically, it's been very left-leaning. And in this year's Congress, it's the first time that the right wing took a majority.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's because after October 7th, your regular Jew changed, and not everybody believes the same things. Not everybody stands for the same things, and the issues that have come up this year are different because it's the first Congress after October 7th. October 7th did not change me, and I'm glad it didn't change me. I've been doing what I do for many, many years as far as Israel advocacy and commitment to our people. But a lot of new people came in. You walk in, you see a lot of the establishment, very famous Jewish philanthropic leaders or leaders of organizations or political leaders. And all of a sudden, like every group has a few new faces, young people. And I think it's really important because I think that we are leading the charge and doing the job on the ground, not necessarily within the establishment of the Jewish organizations that have been around for so long, but on the ground, whether it's with the soldiers or with the hostages or with the families of injured soldiers or even with anything that is Israel related. I feel like people have become very hands-on and want to know where their money's going. They want to see their product. They want to interact. They want to have a relationship. They want to have connection. And that's something that you didn't have with these longtime federations. And so in this Congress, what I am seeing and what I'm feeling is a lot more connected to like boots on the ground. And that's what I like to do. And it really gives me a drive to do more, a passion to be able to accomplish more. And I just feel like it's the right place to be able to make these connections and to make these visions and these dreams that people spoke about many years ago actually come true.
And certainly when you talk about the Jewish-Christian relation, that's very relevant right now. I mean, obviously, since Netanyahu has really come into office in the 1990s, he's enhanced and talked about the value and the importance of that Christian support for Israel. But it's been controversial over the years, and it's definitely, gone in both ways. But now we've seen, I think, after October 7th, both in terms of financial support for Israel, which has been strikingly large, but also, as you mentioned, boots on the ground, people coming here to visit, to help. The Christian support has been unprecedented from what I understand, numerically and passionately, and certainly in terms of supporting the Jewish rights in the homelands. Do you feel that, obviously this is the Zionist Congress, these are Jews that are there together gathering, the largest Jewish gathering in the state of Israel, certainly since October 7th. But do you feel that there is an open-mindedness now, a shift to working with Christians in a way that maybe we didn't see before?
I definitely do see that, and I feel that, and the conversations that people are having definitely include people of all faiths. So you can be a Zionist, but it doesn't mean you have to be Jewish. Zionist means that you support the state of Israel for the Jewish people. And so I believe that historically, Jews who are especially traditional Jews were always afraid that maybe this relationship could hinder our faith because there are many who are missionaries. But for the most part, if somebody tells me that they love me, I believe them. And if somebody tells me that they hate me, I also believe them. And so you have to be cautious if somebody hates you. But if somebody loves you and wants to support you, we have to say thank you. Because if it's a numbers game, we lost. Right. We don't have the numbers in the Jewish world, around the world, or even in Israel, to be able to support ourselves. And something that I learned and I noticed this week, just talking to people who have gotten very involved with the interfaith community, is that many of the representatives, whether they're congressmen or senators, who are pro-Israel in the American government don't necessarily come from Jewish communities or Jewish states. Mm-hmm. And so that shows you that the faith and the value system of the Judean Christian value system is what aligns people to Israel. And it's not necessarily about who's the Messiah or what God you believe in, because yes, that's the theology behind it. But in actuality, the support is coming from a really good place. And Netanyahu understood this very early on with people like Pastor Hagee and Kufi, for example, that has a lobby not just in D.C., but also on campus. They have students and chapters all over the universities that are helping us combat anti-Semitism. Like, we have some of our own that don't even help us combat anti-Semitism or support the state of Israel. Here you have people that maybe they're not the same religion, but if the values are the same and the history brings us together, we need to embrace those relationships. And I do find that although the World Zionist Congress did start with people of all faiths, and there were non-Jews in the original World Zionist Congress of Theodor Herzl in Basel, there was a time where then they changed the bylaws and you had to be Jewish to participate. Today, you still have to be Jewish to participate in this particular Congress, but it doesn't mean that you can't support institutions or support relationships that provide that assistance and that support for Israel. And the truth is, when you live in the United States, people in Israel don't always understand it. And I understand that because, what do you mean? They're Christian, then why do they love us? Or like, what do you mean? They're Christian and they want to convert us. That's not the case. If you speak to the Christians that support Israel, in order for them to be successful in whatever their beliefs are, the Jewish people have to return to the Jewish homeland. And so they are so clear on why they're here and what their mission is. And if you listen to what they're saying, there's no agenda. It's genuine. And so we need to embrace these relationships because we can no longer fight this alone. And we're lucky to have them. And I'm glad that the Israeli government understands that. I do believe that there's people that are learning about that and they're at least looking into it. Israel365 Action signed with Tzionut Datit. And Tzionut Datit in the past had not engaged with evangelical relationships. And now we have a minister of Knesset, Ohad Tal, who is going around the world spreading that mission and welcoming that friendship.
100%. He's been here on this podcast and spoke a lot about that mission specifically. Now, you keep mentioning this word Zionism. We're talking about the World Zionist Congress. You say you're a Zionist. Anybody can be a Zionist who loves Israel. Zionism seems like a very... It's not a tangible word. It doesn't have a direct definition. So how do you define Zionism? And could you take that to the practical? What does it mean to be a Zionist today in 2025? Some places it seems like it's a dirty word.
For some people, Zionism is a religious statement. For some people, it's a political statement. And I think that there are many different forms of Zionism. We know that there are fathers of many kinds of Zionism, right? So Theodor Herzl is the father of political Zionism. But you have religious Zionism, you have cultural Zionism, and you have revisionist Zionism. And everybody that started in the original Zionist movement started because of a different reason. Now, this week's Parsha happens to be Lech Lecha. And if you ask me, that's the ultimate Zionist story. Because you have, if you believe, or if you're just reading it as a book, you have God speaking to Abraham, making him the first Jew, and telling him that you are the Jew that will be numerous like the stars, and you will be the father of this monotheistic religion. But immediately tells him, go to the land that I will show you, and go to the land that I will bring you. And so Zionism really started probably 3,500 years ago, but it evolved in different ways and with different missions. So to me, Zionism is only a bad word to people who are hating Israel for whatever Israel represents to them. But the type of Zionism that I believe in is really all of it. Because if you have a religious claim, great. If you have a political claim, great. If it's geographical or if it's cultural, whatever the reason is, I teach a class on Zionism. And I actually make the kids write a letter telling their parents that they're making Aliyah and what the Zionism concept behind it is. What was their drive? And so in today's world, I still think, and I stand by that statement, that there are different forms of Zionism. There are different reasons people believe in it. But at the end of the day, we understand that Zionism is the right to the Jewish people for a homeland in the land of Israel. And what that reason is up to each person to decide.
So let's talk about that. A right of the Jews to a homeland in the state of Israel. As you mentioned, the other part of the platform is Judea and Samaria and the belief and support of sovereignty for the Jewish people in those areas. That area for Christians called the biblical heartland. And the reason for that is that most of the key events that you mention in the Bible are actually happening in those areas, right? They're not happening in Tel Aviv, and they didn't happen in, Holon. They're happening in...
Tel Aviv is great. It's fun.
I love it.
But that's not our claim to this land.
That's not the claim to the land. It's Shiloh and it's Beit El. And these are areas where we actually have real deep historic roots. And yet we're struggling. So just last week, as you mentioned, the Knesset took a pretty bold stance, first reading only, and they voted in favor of moving forward sovereignty. Very controversial. A lot has come out about President Trump, who's been nothing but supportive, and most of his administration has actually said that Israel has a right to this land, but said...
And visited.
Right.
And visited. We had the Speaker of the House in Judea and Samaria for a full day. So clearly, I don't think the administration is against it.
So why do you think that it has become so controversial now?
I don't know why it's controversial. I don't understand it. To me, it's very clear-cut. And so I know that it is controversial. I don't understand why. And I believe that there are people that maybe are just afraid to take that step, right? Because we have this whole issue with, like, what was going to be a two-state solution. And if you study history, we already had a two-state solution. And the UN partition plan of 1947 made Israel for the Jews, and there was Jordan that was established at the same exact time for the Arabs of the region. there are 55 Arab countries. And so there's one Jewish homeland, and all of the proof, whether it's archaeological or historical or biblical or whatever it is, points in the same direction. I don't know that it's controversial. I think timing is everything. And so what happened in 1967, Israel tripled its size. They won a war that they did not start, kind of like what's happening now. And I believe that the government didn't know what to do with it. What do you do? What kind of law do you apply to this area? How do you engage with the people that are living there? There are solutions to everything, but somebody needs to sit down, take the time, and draw a map and a conclusion to what a Jewish state and homeland, whether it's including the Arabs or not, would look like. And the truth is, if you ask me, I'm not a politician, and I'm not any decision maker. But I will tell you that I truly believe that the Arab people of Judea and Samaria would highly benefit from sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. There are rules that are still from the Ottoman Empire. There are rules against women. There are rules against all kinds of leadership and democracy within their own system. And so if they were to allow Israeli sovereignty, the world or the Israeli government or whoever it is that's going to push this forward, eventually you have to, because it's an issue of timing. There are 500,000 Jews or more that are living in Judea and Samaria. Those Jews are considered Israeli citizens. Those Jews have to follow Israeli laws, and those Jews have to follow Israeli building codes. The Arabs that live in the area are kind of in limbo, and so they don't make minimum wage. They don't have democratic elections. They don't have a healthcare system. They don't have an education system. How wonderful would it be to be able to apply Israeli democracy onto an area that militarily, historically, biblically belongs to Israel? It didn't belong to anybody else previously either, because the truth is, when they say that Israel occupied, before Israel was there, it was Jordan, and before that it was the British, and before that it was the Ottoman Empire. And so we are rewriting history because his story is a person's version of history. And the Palestinian story emerged in the late 1970s, but something was there before. There was all kinds of people who came through the land, but there was not a sovereign Palestinian country ever in Judea and Samaria. To invent or rewrite history, I think, is a dangerous thing to do, because I don't know that it would actually benefit any of the people in that area. And so when it comes to sovereignty, I think it's a necessity for the residents of Judea and Samaria. I don't think it should be a political issue. I think it's very clear-cut. And of course, evangelicals, Christians who believe in the Bible, understand who the land belongs to, and that's why they support it. So I wish more Jewish people would understand it and support it.
Because it is definitely, among the Jewish organizations, become sort of a controversial issue as well, certainly for the ones that are more center-left or more liberal, as you described. Although, as you also said, after October 7th, a lot of that has shifted, and we're starting to see some
Agreed,
changes.
but if you're liberal, you should care about the people that live there. And the people that live there live under no sovereignty of anybody, and they are actually restricted by the Palestinian Authority. So how wonderful would it be to bring some kind of freedom and democracy to the people in Judea and Samaria who are not Jewish, because the Jews are taken care of. Who's taking care of the other people? If you're liberal, tolerant, humanitarian, why is that not making the news?
Well, Tila, what do you do about the demographic issue? Like, how many people? I believe there's around 2 million Palestinians versus 500,000 Jews living in Judea and Samaria, but it's more a question of, if you took the 2 million in Yehuda and Shomron living in the territories, the other couple million in Gaza, and the couple million you've got living in Israel, at some point won't the demographic shift, and we will end up with a Jewish minority in the state of Israel?
Well, do you know that there are 4 million Americans that don't vote in the United States because they live in American territories?
Correct.
I have not studied this, but there's a book by Ambassador Friedman called One Jewish State. There's Professor Mordechai Kedar, who has written a very incredible, detailed plan. I'm not presenting a plan, but I will tell you that in Guam and American Samoa, there is no voting rights for the people there. Many of them are not even citizens of America. They serve in the military, and they don't have citizenship because there's another title or another status that they are given. Now, I'm not suggesting that I'm an expert. I'm not. Anyone who is an expert can rewrite the laws to be able to bring sovereignty, but healthcare, education, even transportation, because it's so hard to get to. Passports, ID cards, work permits to people that live there, whether they're Jewish or not, but at least give them a path forward. Right now, they're in limbo, and there is no path forward because there's going to be no Palestinian state after October 7th. And not because Jews are not pushing it forward, I'm sure many progressive Jews are, but because probably the Christian majority of the United States won't allow for it.
And probably the Palestinians don't want it because they don't want a two-state solution either.
Agreed. And so I think it was a two-state delusion. I don't think that it benefits anybody. Again, this is my personal opinion, but there are people who are much smarter than I. There are people that are more educated in this topic. And I think that people need to come together and write a plan, not just to apply sovereignty, but what happens to the people there. And I think that they would greatly benefit from it. If you care so much about the people there, allow them to be free.
100%. Now, your family's winery is actually in Judea and Samaria, and it's become very symbolic of what you call experiential Zionism. How can connecting to the land through taste, touch, be a part of this, reshape the Jewish identity for the next generation?
I think that people remember how they felt, and also people remember what they did. You have to create an experience. And so for many years, Judea and Samaria was kind of ignored and maybe abandoned, and there was nowhere to visit. There was nothing to see. There was nothing to experience. You went to Shiloh, and it was a bunch of ruins. You would go to Psagot, where they found actually a cave from the Second Temple that was used for wine, where coins were found that said, "For the freedom of Zion," and there was a picture of grapes on it. That's the logo of our winery on the bottles. So the proof is there. But if you don't create an experience, there's nothing for people to come and see. And that's why my family got involved in Shiloh, for example, and built a visitor center that now 100,000 tourists come through there a day of all faiths and all backgrounds, even people who don't believe, but that are historians or archaeologists or that care about finding something new, experiencing something new. Tourism. And so my family got involved with the winery because it was really purely ideological reasons. It was Jews making wine in Judea because it's written in the Torah that the Jewish people will make wine in the hills of Judea. And so we got involved from an ideological perspective. And thank God it's grown into a beautiful visitor center, a beautiful place that holds many, many smachot, parties, weddings, bar mitzvahs, baby namings, meetings. I go there. Now there's a beit cafe, a coffee shop that you could go any day and have your meetings there. There's nowhere else in the area that's outside of Jerusalem or in between, these Jewish communities where people can stop and have a decent experience. Now more and more it's coming. So there are more restaurants, there's coffee shops, there's food trucks that are in the area. And if you build it, they will come. Yeah. And if you give people the opportunity to experience something new, experience a piece of Israel, a taste of Israel, like you said, whether they're seeing it, smelling it, hearing it for the first time, touching it, that's what you go home with. And that experience is something that my family tried to create by getting involved in different communities in Judea and Samaria. And I think that now, after 25 years, where it was controversial then, it's less controversial. Because if you invite somebody to a wedding in Psagot, they come.
Right. Well, it's 20 minutes away from Jerusalem.
But they come from Tel Aviv, too. And so regardless of what their political view is, when maybe before they wouldn't cross into Judea and Samaria, today they get in a car and they drive there. And it's not so political anymore because we've had that conversation.
100%. And I used to live up on a hilltop in the area in Judea 25 years ago. And I remember then the roads, they were a couple of dirt roads. You probably remember this.
Really dangerous, too.
Yeah, and everyone would swerve around. I had my first son driving to the hospital, in the middle of the night.
What was the name of the hilltop?
I lived in Hamiftar, when Rabbi Erskine's, before it was built up, when it was just caravans, yeah. Before it was even that, yeah. And we used to, I went to drive my son, and it was so scary driving on the roads. And now I go and I drive, and there's many lanes, and there's a divider, and there's stoplights.
And they're expanding it now, too.
It's amazing.
It's a suburb of Jerusalem.
Correct.
So how silly that we would call it something that it's not, right? You have, I think, 20,000 Jews living in Gush Etzion, something like that. Yeah. And you have experiences that people can come there and go hiking, go into the water pools that they have, the natural springs, go biking. So again, it's just about having a civilized, some kind of structure where people can come to and they'll visit. And it's not so political. Not everything needs to be politicized.
Right. And I think it's interesting also what Netanyahu said last week when the vote was happening. And he said, look, the goal is not necessarily, to push this vote through or that through now. In the end, it's about sovereignty. And sovereignty comes from us putting boots on the ground. Build, make restaurants, visit, make it a part of our lives.
Natural expansion from your own communities, right? Like a family will have many children in these areas because it's more religious Zionists. And if you have anywhere from 6 to 12 kids and your kids want to stay home, so you expand the neighborhood.
Right.
It's not about taking over anybody's land. The land is very open and empty for people to be able to access. What we're going to do with the state land is going to come from the government. I don't think it needs to be such a serious discussion or offensive to any American government representative. Like J.D. Vance said, it was offensive to him. The timing was off. Right? It didn't need to be then. We know that it was to undermine probably the prime minister and his position.
Right.
I don't think that, from what I've read, the prime minister is not against sovereignty.
No, he
has
says
allowed
just
for
maybe not
expansion.
now, right?
And timing, like we said, we've waited this long. Let's do it right.
Yeah.
And let's make sure we have a plan.
100%. Now, you mentioned children. You have 6 children of your own. And I'm just, curious, hearing you speak and you're so articulate. You're involved in so many things. You're the top delegate at the World Zionist Congress. How do you manage all your children and all of the work that you do in all of these different aspects?
First of all, my kids are really spread out. My oldest is 22 and my youngest is 3. So they're very spread out. I don't have a bunch of babies at home. I have some young adults, I have some teenagers and kids that are pretty self-sufficient and independent. My little one, people that see me and know me, she goes with me everywhere. And it's not just her. Each kid in their own time was with me all the time. She happens to not be here with me right now because she had school and it was a better structure for her and it would be more entertaining for her. But everywhere I go, everybody says to me, "Where's Lilu?" And she's not here holding onto my skirt. But I have no shame in taking my kids to anything. The truth is, everywhere I go, I usually have one of my children with me because I do believe that the experiential learning is about hands-on education. And so actually, outside the studio, my son Joseph, who's 18, is here with me, and he's here at Bar Ilan for Israel XP to experience 1 year living in Israel while going to school. My oldest daughter went to the Israeli army, and so just like that, I try to include my children in the things that I do so that they will have the experience, have the passion, and plant those seeds to know that I've done a good job, because if I only did it for myself, it wasn't meaningful. What matters is the next generation. And so with that, I will say that I work very hard for my community and for my people and for my country and my homeland, but I work not on their time. So my kids are in school basically from 8 to 4 or 8 to 5, or the older ones are out doing their thing. And for the most part, I try not to infringe on their time. I have enough hours in the day where I can work and do the things that I need to do. If they're old enough to come with me, they can. And if they're not, they're in school. And most of the time, I am completely off the grid on the weekends. We have Sundays also. And in the evenings, I'm with my kids. So if I need to go to events, it's after bedtime. And if I have to have meetings, it's after they started school. And so my schedule is very much, my children come first, and people know that. And so whenever I'm available, that is not on their time, I will make time for the things that I'm passionate about.
Incredible. Now, I want to just touch on one more subject before we wrap up. I know we're going to run out of time, but you mentioned how you were just appointed to this new board for Holocaust education. And anti-Semitism is surging in the United States since October 7th. I mean, worse than we've ever seen it, and it's been surging for a long time. So, how do you make sure that this next generation is educated? What kind of education? Is it Holocaust education? What do we do to stop what we're seeing unravel there?
Usually, I don't say things that are very mainstream, and not because I'm against anybody, but because I think we have to be creative in the things that we do. And so kids are very sophisticated. They have all the information that they need in the palm of their hands on an iPhone. It's what experiences you've given them. Now, it's true I was appointed to the Holocaust Museum Board, and I take it very seriously. My grandmother's a Holocaust survivor. To tell that story is very important. Most Jewish kids have heard that story. And so for them, I believe that we don't so much need to focus on what was and on the past. I think that it's very important to get them involved in Israel. Now, you spoke about anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism always existed. People always hated the Jewish people. Sometimes it was the church, the Crusaders. Sometimes it was the Ottoman Empire. Even under the British Mandate of Palestine here, Jews were oppressed. And so I don't think that Jew hatred, which is the new term for anti-Semitism, is something new. I think it's something very old. But if you call it by what it is, Jew hatred, it's not so popular to hate anybody, right? Everyone's preaching peace and tolerance and acceptance. And so I truly believe that spending money on combating people that hate you is not the right way to go. I believe that Jewish education and empowering our children to educate them and then educate those around them and make them be our next Jewish leaders and have strong Jewish identities and understand our history and understand our religion and understand that we are people of peace and we are people of tolerance and we do welcome other people to join us on our missions. We are not a missionary religion. We're not trying to convert anybody. You do you. We have Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach. You do what you need to do as a non-Jew, and we will do what we need to do as Jews. But it doesn't mean that we can't work together. And so I think it's very important to empower the Jewish kids to be proud of who they are. And while we have Jewish kids marching for Students of Justice of Palestine, we are failing. And we're failing in our kids' education and our kids' future. As a mom, I can tell you that what I try to do with my kids is to make them understand who they are, not just in the classroom, but also through the experiences and their interactions. And Jewish and non-Jewish people come to our house all the time. We host everybody at our Shabbat table. Of course, Jews of all backgrounds come. We have super liberal, progressive Jews that will come and sit at our table. And we have very right-wing, Haredi, Orthodox Jews sitting at our table. And they will all come away, for sure, with an experience that was accepting and positive, because I have no problem with people that disagree with me, and I like to engage with people that I disagree with because I'll learn something and they'll learn something. And many times I'm not trying to change anybody, but I'll teach them something that they didn't know. And if I taught them something that they didn't know and they'll teach that to somebody else, then that's how I go about my mission. Being on the Holocaust Museum Board is a very serious job, but I do believe that we have to combine it with Israel education, Israel experiences, bringing people here and having them understand. And October 7th was not the Holocaust. It has been compared to the Holocaust. Atrocities like in the Holocaust happened. It was the worst day since the Holocaust, but there has been and there never will be something like the Holocaust. So in the Holocaust Museum, we did have a memorial for October 7th, and we also included a new permanent exhibit for October 7th, and we invite everyone to come there. But not just come there and only bringing the Jewish people to once again see what they did to us, but what are you going to do with that? And how can we engage with people that don't know about it? And how can we teach others to actually have that experience and go home with something that warms their heart?
Amazing. Well, Tila, unfortunately, we are out of time, but sharing all of these ideas, I really appreciate your insights today and your being able to share it with our audience, and best of luck at the Congress.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope our resolutions pass. I'll keep you posted.
Sounds good. Thanks.